Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to the Children of the Sun radio show and podcast, a show focused on positive energy from a fifth dimensional metaphysical point of view and the St. Croix community. I'm your host, Ray Bratcher. I give sacred breathwork sessions here on St. Croix and around the world. And the purpose of those sessions is the same as the purpose of this program: to free your mind from the straitjacket of fear and to free your body from anxiety, stress, trauma, and drama. So welcome to the program and welcome to the weekend as well, because it is a Friday. It is Friday, July 24th, 2026 here at AM 970 WSTX, the soul of the Caribbean, where it is currently 12:49 p.m. Atlantic Standard Time, right here in the beautiful turquoise waters of the Caribbean Sea. So let's send out a deep, grounding embrace to everyone joining us across Christiansted, Frederiksted, Kings Hill, our sister islands, and to the global Crucian diaspora world tuning in worldwide. And I do have to begin with on a sad note. As Dr. Copeman talked about this morning, as a community, we have all lost a valued, esteemed, wonderful community member, Adjua, Claudette Young Hines, Adjua as she was known in the jazz vocalist world. Dear long-time friend of mine. Of course, I knew her as a jazz singer. I went to many of her performances, and I think Dr. Copeman this morning covered that pretty well. I also knew her as someone very interested in the healing arts, and a lot of people may not know about that side of her. Always a big supporter of my work. Took many sessions, private sessions, breathwork sessions with me. Came to most of my group breathes at the courtyard in Christiansted. And when I wanted to do a series of more academic seminars, and I needed kind of a classroom setting. She volunteered to let me use her space at the Beeston Hill Medical Center, and we set up chairs in rows and columns, and I had a whiteboard at the front of the room and delivered a series of lectures there, which were well attended, primarily because she was on the phone calling people, telling them they needed to come. Big supporter. And gave me books on African shamanism and books, actually articles Xeroxed out of hot off the presses from the latest journals on epigenetics. And both of those strongly influenced my work. So you don't give someone 20 private breathwork sessions without getting to know them pretty well. And I got to know Adjua very well. Wonderful person, and almost in tears. Really going to miss her. It's kind of And I met her mother, who was a well-regarded healer here on St. Croix. Um, I got to meet her just a couple of times before she passed away shortly after I moved here. My wife and I moved here. Um, Very powerful healer. And so Adjua was in that heritage. Wonderful person, loving, wonderful person. Long life. I mean, I think a lot of people who have been here a while remember her as the voice of steady calm in the aftermath of Hugo. And then she went into the medical field and always kept up with the jazz singing, the wonderful vocals, the real jazz vocalist with a trained voice and expertise. So my condolences to her daughter, my condolences to her family, her husband. Um, it kind of took me by surprise. I thought she would be here with us forever. But alas, it was not meant to be. So, Adjua, we will all miss you. And thank you for all of the joy that you brought to everyone here. On St. Croix. So, turning back to our show. Um, our last show on July 3rd, fittingly enough, we closed out the final chapter of Mike Brock's remarkable Crisis Papers series. This is our special project we've been laboring through for the last 10 episodes of Children of the Sun here on AM 970. And the last show we took a look at you could almost call it an alchemical shift happening across the country, looking at the old corporate matrix flopping under its own weight, and we anchored ourselves in the living reality of the shared space. Today, in this last episode in the series, I want to pause to go deeper and to kind of bring it all home, bring it all together, a kind of a simple summary of where we have been before. And we want to bring it all together, tie up the loose ends. And so I'm going to switch things up a little bit today. Instead of doing the Mike Brock at the end, I'm going to do it at the beginning. We're circling back to a foundational text that sparked a massive shift in our thinking. Mike Brock's The Crisis Number 3, the piece on civics education, public duty, and the citizen, capital letters. The citizen as the largest institution in the Republic. Bigger than the courts, bigger than the Congress, bigger than the White House, bigger than the press. The most important role in the Republic is the citizen. Us, we the people. We have all the power. So I'm going to turn now to that crisis paper, and hopefully my voice will hold out. And I'm going to share that with you now. The Crisis Number 3 on the Institution of the Citizen by Mike Brock. When we take power, and we will take power, we are going to have to do some uncomfortable things. I say this plainly because I am tired of pretending otherwise. The Republic is in crisis. The people who brought us to this crisis must be held accountable. And the conditions that allowed this crisis to occur must be changed fundamentally and permanently so that it never happens again. This this will not be comfortable. It will not be polite. It will not satisfy those who believe that politics is a matter of splitting differences and finding common ground with people who have demonstrated, beyond any reasonable doubt, that they do not share our commitment to constitutional democracy. Some will call what I am about to describe authoritarian. They will call it indoctrination. They will say we have become what we opposed. They will be wrong, and I will explain why. The institution of the citizen is the largest institution in the Republic. I want you to sit with that sentence. I want you to understand what it means. We speak of institutions constantly. The presidency, the Congress, the courts, the military, the press. We analyze their health, their dysfunction, their capture by hostile forces. We write articles about institutional decay and institutional reform. We understand, at least in the abstract, that a republic is only as strong as its institutions. But we have forgotten the largest institution of all, the one that encompasses all the others, the one without which none of the others can function. The citizen. Citizenship is not a status. It is not a passport. It is not a set of rights you passively enjoy while going about your private business. Citizenship is an institution, the foundational institution of Republican government. And like all institutions, it must be built, maintained, renewed, and defended. An institution has structure. It has norms. It has practices. It has privileges, and it has responsibilities. The institution of the citizen is no different. To be a citizen is to occupy a role in the political order, a role that carries obligations as well as rights, duties as well as freedoms. We have forgotten this. We have allowed citizenship to decay into a consumer identity, a tribal marker, a thing you perform on social media rather than practice in your community. We have produced generations of Americans who do not understand what the Constitution requires, what self-governance demands, what they owe to each other and to the republic that protects them all. And now we are paying the price. Thomas Jefferson understood that republics do not sustain themselves. That is why in Virginia he established public education as a civic necessity, not as a path to employment, not as a mechanism for economic mobility, as the means by which a self-governing people would learn to govern themselves. The founders knew that democracy was fragile. They knew that it required an informed and engaged citizenry. They knew that the alternative, a population ignorant of its rights and indifferent to its duties, was a population ripe for tyranny. For most of American history, we took this seriously. After World War II, we understood that the defeat of fascism abroad meant nothing if we did not fortify democracy at home. We built civic education into the bones of our public schools. We taught children explicitly and unapologetically that they were citizens of a self-governing republic, that fascism and totalitarianism were threats to human dignity, that democracy required their participation, that the Constitution was not just a historical document, but a living compact that they were responsible for upholding. This was not neutral. This was not both sides. This was aggressively, intentionally, proudly pro-democratic. We were forming citizens. We were building the institution. And it worked. Then we stopped. We let civic education decay into an afterthought. We let citizenship become a brand. We convinced ourselves that democracy was self-sustaining, that the institutions would hold on their own, that we did not need to do the hard work of forming each generation in the practices and responsibilities of self-governance. The enemies of democracy did not make the same mistake. They built their own educational infrastructure, their think tanks, their media networks, their podcasts and YouTube channels and boot camps. They taught their children that government was the enemy, that taxation was theft, that the collective good was a fiction, that the only loyalty was to oneself and one's capital. And now their children are in power, and our children do not know how to stop them. When we take power, we are going to fix this. We are going to rebuild civic education from the ground up. We are going to teach citizenship, real citizenship, with privileges and responsibilities to every child in America. We are going to make the institution of the citizen strong again so that what is happening now can never happen again. I will tell you exactly what this means because I am tired of speaking in abstractions. It means teaching children what the Constitution says and what it requires, not as a historical curiosity, but as the operating system of their political life. The separation of powers, the Bill of Rights, the amendments that expanded the franchise and why they were necessary, the ways the document has been interpreted, contested, and defended over 2.5 centuries. It means teaching children what citizenship demands of them. Not just their rights, their duties. The duty to be informed, the duty to participate, the duty to vote, to serve on juries, to engage in the life of their communities, the duty to hold their representatives accountable, the duty to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It means teaching children to recognize the enemies of democracy, to understand how authoritarianism works, how it seduces, how it comes wrapped in flags and promising to make things great again, to recognize propaganda, to identify manipulation, to resist the siren song of strong men who promise simple solutions to complex problems. It means teaching children that they are part of something larger than themselves, that the Republic is a collective project, a covenant across generations, a thing that was built by people who came before and must be preserved for people who come after. That their individual freedom depends on collective institutions and that those institutions depend on them. This is what Jefferson understood. This is what we understood after the war. This is what we forgot and what we must remember. They will call this indoctrination. Let them. All civic education is formation. All teaching of values is, in some sense, indoctrination. The question is not whether we form citizens, but what kind of citizens we form, and toward what end. The choice is not between indoctrination and neutrality. The choice is between forming citizens who understand and value democratic self-governance and abandoning that formation to those who would teach them to despise it. We tried neutrality. We tried stepping back, letting the marketplace of ideas sort it out, trusting that democracy would defend itself. The result is a generation that cannot distinguish between news and propaganda, that thinks freedom means the absence of all obligation, that has been taught by algorithm to hate their neighbors and worship their exploiters. The marketplace of ideas has been cornered by people with more money than conscience. The neutral approach has produced a citizenry that does not know what citizenship means. We are done with neutrality. We are going to teach our children what democracy requires. We are going to form citizens who will defend the republic because they understand what it is and why it matters. We are going to be as aggressive and intentional in building democratic culture as the enemies of democracy have been in destroying it. And when conservatives call this liberal propaganda, we will say no. This is not liberal. This is not conservative. This is Republican with a small r. This is the inheritance of Jefferson and Madison and Lincoln and the soldiers who died at Normandy and the martyrs who bled at Selma. This is the American tradition, and we are reclaiming it. There is more to Reconstruction than education. There are institutions to reform, laws to pass, accountability to impose. The architects and enablers of this crisis must face consequences. The structures that allowed a hostile minority to capture the government must be dismantled and rebuilt. But all of it, every reform, every law, every mechanism of accountability depends on the institution of the citizen. Laws mean nothing if citizens do not understand and enforce them. Reforms fail if the next generation does not know why they matter. Accountability is impossible if the people do not demand it. The citizen is the foundation. Everything else is built on top. If the foundation is weak, the structure collapses. If the foundation is strong, the structure can weather any storm. We are going to make the foundation strong. I know what you are thinking. You are thinking, this sounds good, but how? The other side controls the courts. They control half the legislatures. They will block everything. They will call it tyranny. They will resist with every tool they have. Yes, they will. And we will do it anyway. Here is what I have learned in this long year of crisis. The only things that happen are the things that people make happen. The only changes that occur are the changes that citizens demand. The system does not fix itself. The institutions do not heal on their own. Someone has to do the work. That someone is us. That someone is you. The protesters in Minneapolis did not wait for permission. They did not wait for the courts to save them or the Congress to act. They went into the streets in sub-zero cold, and they demanded that their government stop killing their neighbors. They made it happen. That is citizenship. That is the institution in action. That is what it looks like when the foundation is strong. We need more of that. We need it everywhere. We need citizens who understand that the republic is theirs, not the politicians, not the billionaires, not the theorists in their Singapore boot camps, theirs, and who act accordingly. This pamphlet is called The Crisis, and I have been writing about crisis for 3 installments now. The danger, the enemies, the emergency. But crisis is not only danger. Crisis is also opportunity. The word comes from the Greek krisis, meaning decision, turning point, the moment when things could go either way. We are at that moment. The republic could fall, or the republic could be reborn, stronger than before, with a citizenry that understands what it almost lost and is determined never to lose it again. I believe in the second possibility. I believe it because I have seen what citizens can do when they decide to act. I have seen Minneapolis. I have seen the marches. I have seen ordinary people who never thought of themselves as political step into the street and demand their country back. That is the seed of Reconstruction. That is the beginning of renewal. That is the institution of the citizen remembering itself. The 250th anniversary of the American founding is 5 months away. On July 4th, 2026, we will mark a quarter millennium of this experiment in self-governance. 250 years since a group of colonists declared that all men are created equal, that governments derive their just powers from the consent of the governed, that when a government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it. What will we have to show for ourselves on that day? I want us to arrive at that anniversary having kept the Republic. But more than that, I want us to arrive having rebuilt it, having remembered what citizenship means, having begun the long work of forming a generation that will never let this happen again. That is the vision. That is what we are fighting for. Not just survival, renewal, not just defense, reconstruction. The institution of the citizen is the largest institution in the Republic. And this revolution, this peaceful, constitutional, democratic revolution is about making that clear. We are going to teach our children what it means to be citizens. We are going to give them the knowledge and the tools and the will to defend their republic against all enemies. We are going to build an America where the cynical and the craven can never again get close to power. And we are going to do it together as citizens, as the institution that holds all other institutions in place. This is the crisis. This is the turning point. This is the decision. Let us decide well. So that was crisis number 3, written before the 250th. I think when we saw the celebration on the mall, we got a sense of the weakness of the other side, those who would capture our democracy. But you heard the reading, you felt the weight of Mike Brock's words. He reminded us that citizenship is not a consumer brand, not a passive status, and not a set of rights you enjoy while ignoring the collapse of everything around you. Citizenship is an institutional backbone. And today I want to present a thesis that pulls everything we have built in this series together. We are looking at an approach to politics and spirituality, human awakening that has never truly been tried before. An approach that is not only the ultimate cure for a dying political system, but the highest, most potent vehicle for individual spiritual evolution. And it comes, first of all, from a realization that the vertical paradigm has failed. So to understand why this approach is completely untried, we have to look at what human civilization has defaulted to for thousands of years. Historically, human organization has been strictly vertical. In a vertical system, power flows from the top down. Whether it is a monarchy, a corporate oligarchy, or an authoritarian regime, the structure is always the same. A small group at the apex holds the wealth, the power, the narrative, and the force, while the masses at the bottom are treated as subjects, consumers, or units of labor. Even when modern democracies emerged, they were largely built on a modified vertical framework disguised as representation, where professional political classes manage the population from above. On the other hand, when people tried to break away from the vertical trap, over the last 50 years, they swung violently in the opposite direction, toward hyper-individualism. We were told that the only way to be free was to become an island. The rugged, walled-off ego became the hero of the culture. We were taught to look at the state, which is what is the state? Really, it's just our organized community. It's us. But we were taught to look at the state as an alien enemy and to view our neighbors not as sacred reflections of ourselves, but as competitors in a brutal dog-eat-dog marketplace. Both of these paradigms have completely failed. Vertical rule leads to tyranny, corruption, and empires that inevitably collapse. Hyper-individualism leads to spiritual isolation, social decay, political apathy, and a population so traumatized and disconnected that they can no longer maintain a functioning republic. The old world is caught between top-down control and bottom-up selfishness. Neither of them works. Neither of them heals. The untried path, horizontal enlightenment, horizontal awakening. This is where our unique thesis comes in. What if the solution to our political crisis and our spiritual crisis is the exact same thing? What if the answer is horizontal enlightenment applied directly to public life? For centuries, Spirituality has been viewed as an entirely vertical, private pursuit. The traditional spiritual seeker climbs the mountain, sits in a cave, meditates in an ashram, or focuses entirely on internal peace, seeking to escape the messy, corrupt, material world to achieve personal liberation. Meanwhile, politics has been viewed as the exact opposite. A dirty, cynical, hyper-materialistic scramble for power, best left to compromised operatives and greedy factions. We have kept them strictly separated. Spiritual people often look down on politics as too low or too dense to touch, while political activists often look down on spirituality as impractical escapism or naive fluff. Horizontal enlightenment bridges that chasm permanently. Horizontal enlightenment is the realization that the sacred space between us is just as divine as the silence within us. It is the understanding that you cannot wake up in isolation. A spiritual seeker who achieves inner peace while ignoring the suffering of the community, the degradation of the commons, or the collapse of public education is only practicing half of the truth. Vertical awakening must always be eventually converted into horizontal integration. After climbing the ladder or the mountaintop, the seeker must come back down into the world and bring his seeing into his community, as Jesus did when he confronted the Pharisees and overturned the tables of the money changers in the temple. And conversely, political action that is driven purely by ego, partisan rage, or personal ambition is just recycled trauma. It reproduces the very sickness it tries to fight. So this is a dual liberation. It's politics as a spiritual practice. When we bring horizontal enlightenment into the political sphere, something extraordinary happens. It becomes an approach that has never been tried before on a mass scale. Imagine a political movement where people do not show up as fragile egos defending their personal turf, but as conscious nodes of a shared sacred field. When citizens organize to demand universal health care, living wages, robust public education, and the protection of our environment, not out of hatred for an enemy, but out of an unshakable recognition of our interconnected reality, the entire nature of political action transforms. For politics, it ceases to be a brutal game of factional warfare. It becomes the rebuilding of the commons. It transforms civic duty from a burdensome chore into a sacred stewardship. It makes the institution of the citizen truly unbreakable. For the individual, it provides a genuine, highly effective spiritual path. You don't need to retreat to a mountaintop to find God. You can find the infinite right there in the trenches of community organizing, in the school board meeting, on the picket line, and in the courageous act of standing up for your neighbor. Working for the collective good is spiritual practice. Caring for the Republic is meditation in action. When you engage in community from the point of view of the shared sacred space, political liberation and spiritual awakening become one and the same thing. It is a dual liberation, and it is available to every single person listening right now. And let's integrate this somatically. Going to do a short meditation to anchor this profound shift right here in our bodies right now. Let me get some music started as a background to our meditation. Wherever you are listening, across St. Croix or around the globe, let's practice this mechanics of horizontal awareness. Step 1. Release the isolated self. Let go of the frantic, protective narrative of the lone ego. Drop your shoulders. Feel the solid weight of your body, and let your breathing settle into a natural rhythmic flow. Release the isolated self. Let go of the frantic, protective narrative of the lone ego. Drop your shoulders. Feel the solid weight of your body and let your breathing settle into a natural rhythmic flow. Step 2. Open the heart center. Bring your awareness into the center of your chest. Feel the natural warmth and stability that lives beneath your everyday anxieties. Step 2, open the heart center. Bring your awareness into the center of your chest. Feel the natural warmth and stability that lives beneath your everyday anxieties. Step 3. Expand into the commons. Expand into the commons. Realize that your skin does not mark the boundary of your existence. Breathe out and extend your awareness into the room around you, out into the streets, and across the entire community of listeners sharing this exact broadcast. Step 3. Expand into the commons. Realize that your skin does not mark the boundary of your existence. Breathe out and extend your awareness into the room around you, out onto the streets, and across the entire community of listeners sharing this exact broadcast. Feel the truth of it. We are not isolated fragments. We are the living fabric of the Republic. We are the citizen. As we step forward into the new week, let's carry this untried revolutionary frequency with us. Let the old vertical systems of top-down control and bottom-up selfishness collapse under the weight of their own corruption. Our task is clear: to build something entirely new, rooted in the sacred ground of horizontal enlightenment. Thank you for holding the space, for walking this path, and for being the living proof that a better world isn't just possible, it is already being born through us. Take it easy. Love your neighbors fiercely. And remember who you are. Informed, but not deformed. Protected, collective, and finally free. Peace and blessings. Enjoy your weekend. Remember to get out, get your feet into some sand and your arms around a tree. Get out into nature. Love you all. And we'll see you down the road.